is not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You know how to cut to the core of me, Baxter. You're so wise. But like a miniature Buddha, covered in hair.
I want to become a guru so girls will like me. Then I will like myself.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Golf Guru Show. I am Jason Sutton, and I am the Guru, where it is my mission in life to interview the top golf instruction minds in the business, break them down, get them to share all of their stories, best practices, and information that has made them successful, then ultimately share it with all of you so we can all get better at teaching and coaching this crazy game. Make sure you download this episode and all previous episodes of the Golf Guru Show. Hit that purple subscribe button so you don't miss any future shows that will be coming your way. On today's episode, this is a conversation with some of my greatest friends in the world and the golf business. We were all at the Carolina Section Merchandise Show and Teaching Summit last week, where we decided to get together in my hotel room before dinner and record a podcast. There was no agenda, which I think is the best part and often allows for some of the best discussions, I think. So in this group, we have an awesome group of coaches. They introduced themselves at the beginning, but we will go through it right now for you. We have Kevin Britt, Director of Instruction at Spartanburg Country Club. We have my man Seth Mers, my Director of Junior Golf and Staff Instructor, and my guy Robbie Fales, one of my staff instructors. Sean Kennedy, Director of Instruction at the Cliffs, and my buddy Alan Burton, Director of Instruction at Lake Hickory Country Club and host of another great podcast that you need to check out called The Forecast. Several of these guys, actually I think all of these guys have been on the show at one point, so you can go back into the archives and check out their individual shows, as I would highly recommend that. But basically we just turned on the mics and just kind of went for it. We start with an unsolicited discussion about CBD, which was prior to really the initial start of the podcast, but I just left it in there. And if you buy CBD, perchance, go to enviedhemp.com and use the promo code GURU20. GURU20 will give you a 20% discount for life, as they are friend and sponsor of the show. So let's get to this fun and informative conversation with my mastermind crew. Enjoy. Get the levels down just a little bit. That's a good mic. I just bought this mic.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's good. This is my it's USB and XLR, so that's the one I use for my intros and outros and stuff, and my remote stuff. So it's the updated version of the ATR 2100.
So tell me about your CBD experience.
I'm sleeping better. That's all I can tell you.
Do you take it at night or in the morning only?
Well, I did both. I've run out. I've got to re-up. But the biggest difference that I've found is just I'm sleeping deeper, which I don't do very often.
You know, my stepson works in a retail store in Hickory that sells the product, and we've tried some, my wife and I both. And I agree with you. I think I sleep better. Yeah,
I don't know. I think just from the studies that I've seen, like I don't know that all CBD is equal.
Well, I'm sure.
It's all
You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's all over the place. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. It's not a controlled
How are you taking it?
entity.
The drops. Under the tongue. Yeah.
I've tried the roller. I've got some CBD like roll-on stuff.
I've got that too.
Put on my lower back, and it seems to.
I haven't found a big difference. It hadn't fixed my knee.
Just
I can tell you that.
Yeah,
It's not making my knee feel any better, but
I don't.
yeah, that's been the biggest. And the clarity I thought was really like that. You take clarity in the morning. It definitely, it's almost like having a couple cups of coffee, but a little more
mellow.
Even, yeah,
Not
a little
as
more mellow. Yeah, exactly. I just bought some coffee with CBD infused.
Yeah, my wife drinks that. Yeah.
Yeah.
CBD coffee.
Just got that. Well, actually, my wife bought it from.
Can you divulge the
brand?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know. It starts with an S, but I can't remember. My wife bought it for me.
If I had my phone, I could get it.
Yeah.
Is it like instant?
Yeah, it's a Keurig.
Okay. Like
Keurig.
a Keurig cup.
Yeah, a little cup.
Yeah, she's got like little packets. You just put hot water in.
I'm an espresso now, so I don't know.
Espresso.
Yeah.
I don't know. They make an espresso CBD tab yet. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, it's here at the Greensboro show. I saw a CBD.
Oh, really?
At the Greensboro show. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're starting to see it more in golf shops and everything too.
Yeah.
All right.
John Sherman did I don't know if you read his little thing that he did like from the Post Merchandise show, the Practical Golf guy.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it was fucking hilarious.
Awesome. Just went explicit. No, I mean, we haven't started yet, but I mean, this is good. Are there any topics that you guys want to dive into? I mean, we can kick the show off. I mean, this is the Carolina section PGA show. Yeah, condo / Best Western Hotel episode on the Golf Guru show. I'm joined by a star-studded cast. We can go around the table here and introduce yourselves, and let's introduce ourselves and then give our social platforms where we can kind of connect people with who we are and how they can find us. So let's start here on my right, KB.
Yeah, Kevin Britt, Director of Instruction at Country Club of Spartanburg. Social platform Kevin Britt PGA at Instagram, and just Kevin Britt Golf on Facebook. So
you need to get the who's sharing what?
Okay. We're sharing over here.
All right, okay.
Seth Mers, Junior Golf Director, Staff Instructor at Carmel Country Club, the Carmel Country Club, home of the Guru and the Professor. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Seth Mers PGA. Last name Merz.
Robbie Fales, Staff Instructor at Carmel Country Club. All of my social platforms are at Rob Fales Golf on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Middle name Never.
Robert Never Fails.
Never fails. Yeah, I love it.
Sweet.
Yeah, get close enough to the mic, guys.
Sean Kennedy, Director of Instruction at the Cliffs Communities. SHAWNEEPURE PGA for Twitter, and just Shawnee Pure on Instagram.
And I'm Alan Burton, Director of Instruction at Lake Hickory Country Club.
There you go. Yeah, the back up.
And Director of Instruction at Lake Hickory Country Club. And I'm on Facebook, Alan Burton, ALLEN Burton. My email address is alan@alanburtongolf.com. And I'm on Twitter as @Doc of the Rock. That's DOCKROCK, and Doc of the Rock. And I'm on Instagram also as Alan Burton. So I have to think about all my platforms there.
Plug your podcast. He's got a great new podcast that everybody needs to listen to.
Been very, very inspired by you, Jason Guru, and many others doing some great podcasts. So I jumped on board a little over a year ago and have been blessed to do this out of a studio in Hickory called the Jackson Group and themesh.tv. You can find us on all the Apple podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all the platforms that are carrying all these great podcasts. And our podcast is called The Forecast, F-O-R-E, exclamation, cast, The Forecast. So having a good time with that.
Well, thanks for being here. Yeah, we got Weezy over here in the corner. Tell him who you are, Weez.
John Weiss. I'm the lead instructor at the Country Club of Spartanburg, and you can find me on all social media sites at John Weiss, WEASE PGA.
Awesome. Thanks, man. So where do we want to start this off? I know it's basically an impromptu conversation. We've had a lot of discussion here in the last hour of things we probably can't share on the air, but where do we want to go with this? I mean, do we want to start with the philosophical question that I had before, or do we want to go in something a little bit more instruction-wise? Anybody got an idea?
Jason, I just got a question for you, because you've done an amazing job of building your brand, and I know you had a lot of individuals who have influenced you there. I'm really crappy at self branding. So I'm looking for advice.
All right, so be a little bit more specific. So just as far as like, what's your goal?
That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I'm community based. I'm not trying to reach out to the masses. So maybe I want to start there to try to reach a broader audience.
Yeah, I think that's the first question that you have to ask yourself is what's my goal and what's my vision for, you can call it whatever you want, but basically it's your personal marketing plan, right? So regardless of what you think you're doing when you're on social media, you're basically promoting yourself for a particular reason. Like for me, mine's changed throughout the years. I mean, when I was a Dana Raider, I was on social media to get customers. I wanted people to come see me, and it was business based. Now for me, it's more just to share information with other coaches, right? So you got to kind of ask yourself what's the idea and why am I doing it, right? The why, as we all know, is important in instruction. Yeah, what is your why? So I think, as far as influences for me, Gary Vaynerchuk was a big influence. I think I listened to him quite a bit, even though it has nothing to do with golf. You can always sort of convert that into, something that's relevant to whatever I'm doing with my brand. So that's always interesting, especially like with the different platforms that are popping up. Like, I mean, Instagram's not that old, right? It hasn't been out there very long. We started with Twitter. So my first start in basically 2008, 2009 was what I called the four cornerstones of social media, which was a Facebook. I started a blog, right? So I was doing a lot of writing, and then I had a YouTube channel, and I started a YouTube golf show called Guru TV, and then Twitter was just starting, and then we had no idea what we were getting into when Twitter started, right? So, but it all flowed together, right? So I would go film a video for my YouTube channel. I would field comments, but that was all connected to, it would push it to Twitter. So every time I would shoot a video, it would pop up on my Twitter. I would then go write a blog about it, or if there's something on my mind, I'd go write a blog about it, and then I attach the video to my blog. And then it would all feed into Facebook as well. That's why, my Facebook count is big, because I just accept anybody that wants to learn about golf or wants to talk golf. It's not just a friend thing for me. But I think nowadays it's almost coming back, because YouTube's so big. Like, I think YouTube is now the number one or maybe number two search engine out there, second to Google. So it's very, very well searched. So I would start with YouTube. And this is for any professional out there that wants to connect with, whether it's a smaller audience like your club or whatever, is start with YouTube and just do videos, or just get in front of the camera and talk about your programs. Like, you can do a little newsletter, that type of thing, and then attach it to an email and then shoot it out to your database.
So like videos.
I think videos
kind of the way
is
to
still
go.
the way to go. Yeah, they're more likely. When I started at Carmel, I did a lot of videos for the members, and I would make it private. Right, you can do your settings to where
and I do that for our membership.
There you go. Yeah, so that's a great way to connect with your members, and then send it out, and that way they're the only ones seeing it. But I think they're more likely to open up a video than to read like a long email or a long post nowadays, because again, it's all about time. All we're trying to get is eyeballs, and then we're trying to get that 1 to 2 minute.
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah,
time frame.
1 to 2 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. If it's more than that, it better be really, really good, or you better have a good teaser to like, hey, you need to stick around for the end because you don't want to miss this type of thing.
Well, yeah. So I mean, like Mark Crossfield, right? He does those, and they're like 20-something minutes long a lot of the time.
Yeah, but he's got a following though. So
yeah,
I guarantee you, he probably. It's always interesting to me when I'm
go back in time and see.
Yeah, go back in time and look and let's see how he started. I guarantee he was doing like little clips, little teasers, little attention getters, to where you start building that momentum. You start building followers, and then. Then you can get them to listen and watch for a longer time.
So you said YouTube. What about Vimeo? Is that
I don't think. I mean, I'm not trying to charge for my videos. I guess it depends on. I guess that's a good platform if you're going to charge money for it. But again, it's like when you're just going back to your question. If you're just trying to connect to your database and your members, you're not going to charge them for a video.
No.
So I don't think it's. There used to be. I'm trying to think. There was another. Gosh, I shouldn't even have said that because I'm going to forget. There was another platform that came out right at the same time as YouTube that I actually used to use. Again, Gary Vee. I listen to Gary Vee. He's like, he always has that sort of vision of what's the next thing. And I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, it's like, I don't think anything's going to trump YouTube. They're so powerful now. Now they get TV. You can watch. We were just talking about that earlier with the streaming stuff. I mean, that's an engine that's not going to stop. So I think that's probably the best way to start.
Thanks.
So in terms of getting people hooked, like, do you think that quantity is more important than quality for getting people to at least click on what you're trying to get them to click on?
Yes. Yeah, I think the consistency of putting out content is, because, I mean, let's face it, when you're starting out with a new project, we all suck. You know what I mean? It's like at the beginning, you're not going to be as good as you want to be. But if you only put out one video a month, you're not going to create a following. So again, I think, and I keep going back to Gary Vee, but I have his voice in my head right now, that everybody has their own skill set. You know, I mean, some people are great on videos, some people are great at writing, some people, you know, are good at doing other things. Like, you've got to figure out what you're good at. If you're not good on camera, then don't stop doing it. But I mean, it's not that you can't improve, but you sort of have to. I always say dip your toe in every single thing you can think about, and then you'll figure out what you're good at pretty quick. But yeah, consistency is really important. That's why when we do the podcast, if I didn't do a podcast for 6 months, people are going to forget about me, right? So it's like I try to do one a week, which is a good sort of time frame for people to catch on to it. And you can also do too much. You know, you don't want to do one every day because then I mean, Joe Rogan's about the exception where he does so many. It's hard to keep up, right?
Yep.
Good question.
How has podcasting improved your golf instruction?
That's a great question. I think it's definitely created a skill of asking better questions. Right. So when we talk about this all the time in our training, we're just like, you know, you can ask the same question 5 different ways, but one's going to be more relative to the student. And so it's made me more thoughtful, I think. It's made me, obviously it's helped me knowledge-wise. I mean, it's amazing to be able to have all these great teachers and great people on the podcast, because I just sit back and I'm a fan. But it's also allowing me to sort of think ahead of, like, what's the next question going to be and why. It's helped my interview skills, which I think you can apply that to any job out there if anybody's listening. I think it's just really, I'll probably have a better answer as soon as I can kind of get my thoughts together. But mostly it's just allowed me to be a better communicator, to use less non-words, as I've used about 6 in the last 2 seconds. It drives me crazy. But it's because I'm thinking, right? Sure. So again, it's like I'm thinking about it. But yeah, communication has been the biggest skill. There's a lot of stuff, and we can kind of come back to that. But great question.
Did it make you a better listener?
100%. Yeah, there you go. That's the thing, is my goal as a host of the podcast is not to give my 2 cents, not to give my knowledge during the show. I want to ask great questions, and I want to get the knowledge from the guest, and I want to just stay out of the way. Yep. We were talking about my friend James Lights, that I thought it was the best interviews, I think, are when I can ask one question or 2 questions, maybe a follow-up, and I can get them to talk 20, 30 minutes. That's when I feel like I've done my job. It's not about me. I don't want to get in there and tell them what I think. I'm not being interviewed, even though I'm being interviewed now. You guys this is like the Tim Ferriss flip the script right here.
The script.
Yeah, I like it. But I mean, that's my goal, and that's what I've learned, because I think at the beginning, hopefully if you listen back to the beginning of my podcast and now, you see a different, I mean, I do a lot more research. That's another thing. It's helped me to be a better researcher, which I think can be valuable in a lot of different parts of your life and in our job. But it's allowed me to be more organized, more prepared for just whatever is going to come, because you just never know.
Well, I guess the thing that I've noticed the most, just listening and kind of watching from a bird's eye view of the podcast, is that your interviews become less interviewee. They become much more conversational, and that's where I think you've gotten better.
Yeah, that's the goal, and I always tell, because there's a lot of ways to do it, right? I mean, I've been on the other side of a lot of podcasts, and I want to make the guest comfortable enough to where we just feel like we're just having a drink and talking about golf instruction or what makes them better and successful daily habits. And that's when it becomes comfortable for both of us, right? And I think it comes through hopefully on the other side that I think it's easier to listen to, rather than being like, okay, let me ask you a question, you give me an answer, let me ask you a question, you give me an answer. I want it to have a little more flow. So thank you for that.
Alan, as a newer podcaster, you can add anything to that?
Well, I think all the points that he's made are dead on. I mean, you're learning so many skills as you're trying to create your place in this podcast medium world. And it's, for me, it's been fascinating to listen to people, listen to different podcasts, and I need to listen more. I mean, it's part of the relationship that you're developing with each of your guests. How much of it is going to be you listening to their response and guiding them to a good response with a good question. Mm-hmm. And how much of it is you carrying the whole conversation, because their responses are very thin and weak and what have you.
Yeah, those are the hardest ones.
You're trying to keep the ball bouncing. You're trying to keep the show entertaining and keep the guest who is listening. Mm-hmm. You're trying to give them a reason to stick around, and it's sometimes up to the guest and sometimes it's up to you.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why I listen. It's like twofold as far as like how many podcasts I listen to now, because I'm listening to also the way that host structures their show, and I've copied plenty of my favorites. Basically, I mean, when I started out, it's called, Tony Robbins calls it modeling, right? If you don't know anything, then go find somebody that's successful and then copy them a little bit. I mean, I think it's okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people might disagree with that, but you don't know what you don't know. And this person obviously is successful with whatever they're doing. So I've copied questions. I'm always constantly, I drive my wife crazy now because I love listening to interview shows on TV, because I'm constantly listening for the question. It's not even so much the answer. It's like, all right, that was a cool way that he put that question. Like Dan Patrick or David Letterman or anybody that's interviewed, Jimmy Fallon. I mean, people that are doing it for a living. It's like, then I'll go and put it in my phone and write it down. But it's like, it's the delivery, it's the pauses, it's how much is the host talking, it's all that stuff, right? That we're sort of learning as we figure out this thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like, again, trying to get better every time, and hopefully, just like people are trying to do with their golf game, or we're trying to be as coaches, I'm just trying to get a little bit better every day. The 1%.
Not a bad plan.
That's not a bad plan.
Yeah, and we're having fun along the way. So I mean,
absolutely, yeah. It's interesting that. I'm not making any money doing my podcast, but it gets me out of bed in the morning, and it keeps me up late at night. Yep. Because I feel like I'm maybe sharing something with somebody else that's going to have an effect on their career and their life, and that's the goal.
Yeah. Certainly.
All right. Where do we go? I feel like am I the host or am I the guest here? Right.
You're both.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both.
Guest. Yeah,
and that's okay. Yeah. So I mean, any interesting topics? I mean, we're here at the PGA show for our section. We could go through. I don't know if you guys listened to the Open Forum podcast a little bit. We could kind of go through some of those questions. If you let's do that. I'm gonna just throw out. And then this should spark a little bit of conversation with what's going on in you guys' jobs. So what are you guys excited for in 2020? Are you doing anything different? It could be programming, it could be a mindset, anything that you want to share that you're doing differently in 2020. We'll start with you, KB.
This year, just got a lot going on at the club. We have a lot of programming coming up, starting this week with our big junior program, running Operation 36, and we've been doing that for over a couple years now, and really grown it from about 20 kids to we've got about 75 kids coming regularly to our semester. So that's this week, and then beyond that, starting in March, we've got adult programming. Of course, private lessons going on all the time. Also be on the road, probably starting in March or April with William. Be out on a couple rehab starts on the
McGirt.
McGirt. On the Corn Ferry Tour, and then hopefully get on the PGA Tour if he's ready to go this year, hopefully in May or June. So should have a pretty good year. Looking forward to doing all that, and definitely looking forward to getting on the road with him and getting back out on the tour a little bit.
Cool. Any big goals for yourself for 2020 that you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to continue to grow, continue to get better, educate, and try to get a little better every day. We have, I feel like if you're doing the same thing all the time, you get kind of stuck in a rut. So trying to grow a little bit, maybe get out of your comfort zone and do some stuff, and maybe in the next year or two got some different plans going on down the road.
So what makes you uncomfortable?
Podcast? No.
Maybe a few more presentations.
Well, to present. I'm not like super comfortable getting in front of big crowds of people, so I'm pretty good one-on-one teaching. But if I get in front of a 300 or 400 golf instructors, that would probably get me out of my comfort zone quite a bit. Any kind of TV interviews or stuff like that, it would a new job would get you out of your comfort zone. Any chance to grow, I think. You have to be willing to do that kind of stuff, though. If you're willing to grow and to get better with your career, you've got to be willing to take those steps sometimes and move along. So,
Seth Mers, what are you excited for 2020? And share one of your goals.
I have a lot of personal goals that I've set for this year going forward that I won't get too into. Dropping some weight and finding some other paths to go down. But one thing that I'm excited about and looking forward to is, and Kevin touched on it a lot, is just kind of breaking out and experiencing different things and different patterns. I think that we oftentimes get ourselves caught in a rut and doing the same job over and over, especially at the same place, even especially at a private atmosphere like we're at. A lot of times you can get caught, basically copy and pasting from the previous year. So I think one thing this year that I'm going to really put a good effort into is developing different strategies for not only reaching new people, but developing new strategies as far as developing other people's careers and golfers as well.
Yeah, I think before you hand the mic over, 'cause we've talked about in our little conversations about you getting more out there in social media and sharing more, because you've got such great information. And you do such a great job with the kids, and then just with all your students, I think you just need to put yourself out there a little bit more on Instagram and share that.
Definitely need to just post more. A lot of times I get, you get into those summer times where you're working 80 hours a week and absolutely crushing it, and I just get a little sidetracked and more focused on actually getting performance out of the students and out of my programs than I do actually sharing some of those.
Yeah, it's just a habit. It's just a habit you got to get into with turning the camera on and doing some stuff. But you've got so much to add and so much to offer. So hopefully you'll do that.
Follow from the best. We got a room full of awesome guys.
Right. Cool.
Top and bottom hundreds.
Yes. All right, Mr. Fales, what are you excited for 2020?
I would say the thing I'm most excited for would be so I've got a nice little group of high school or like late middle school, early high school age kids who are looking to play college golf in their future. So I've started this little group called the Jungle Tigers, and so what the goal is to get them on course and put them in uncomfortable situations relative to what they would normally do when they play with each other. And so just being around, and I'm going to book off 2 hours at a time and go out and watch them in that environment, and then hope to get to know them a little bit better. So in terms of on the lesson tee, that would be the thing I'm most excited about, is really getting into that space. But from a coaching standpoint, I'm looking forward to trying to be a little bit more artist, a little less scientist. I think I get in my own head a lot of times on the lesson tee, thinking, okay, this is like,
I concur.
Thinking about, okay, on paper.
You can allow that, counselor?
I get in the trap of saying, on paper, if I do this, this is what should happen. And I think a lot of times teaching is like playing. You kind of have to, from time to time, turn your brain off and just go and let it happen.
A little more instinct.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. Yep. Shawnee?
So we have a new ownership at the Cliffs, and I've been afforded the opportunity at a couple clubs to actually start developing some newer golfers, which is pretty exciting for me. I don't know if it's a step backward or step forward. But for development for me, it feels like a huge step forward, because it's just something I haven't done in a long time. I've been working with more of the accomplished player and the guy who's trying to play in tournaments and things like this. So it's been a lot of fun, and getting those new golfers on the golf course so they get that understanding of context of why they might want to practice the skill has been, pretty cool so far.
Show them why they suck.
Yeah. So they can embrace the suck. Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's a big thrill for me already. There's a group of guys that I started working with, and they're retired, and they're just having a blast. I mean, it's fun to see in these little 90-minute segments, like the joy that somebody can have from making solid contact has been. I forgot about that a little bit, so it's been pretty neat. Yeah, it's been really neat.
Cool. AB.
Well, for me, I mean, having a podcast that I've worked on for a little more than a year and continuing to try and grow that in the best possible way for me, and finding a little direction with it. Continue to try and get interesting guests on. That's certainly a challenge. On a personal level, I've worked on last year a little personal development, and trying to lose some weight, which I needed to do, and have been successful there. So that
you
mission
look great, by the way.
Thank you. I'm very blessed to have a lot of support around me, and without a tremendous effort, I've been successful. So I want to continue that and move that in a good direction for the next year. If I could do what I did in the last year for one more year, I think I'd be in a place where I want to be, physically. And I'll be 58 this summer, so for me, teaching is still a passion, but I don't see myself being able to put the 10 and 12-hour days in like I used to. As I'm moving closer to 60 years old, I want to be more effective in the 8 hours a day than I used to be in the 12 hours a day, and that's something I'm looking closely at as a career shift. I want to see if I can generate the effectiveness and the quality with less time invested, if that's a possible way to do that. Because I've also rediscovered a little passion for playing music. As some of you guys know, I've gotten back into that as a part-time hobby. This band that we have will play. If we have a successful year, we'll play 8 shows this year.
Oh, nice.
And it's a brand new band. It's a foreigner tribute band that we're billing ourselves as right now. And we have our first shows coming up in April and May at Amos's in Charlotte. So if you're going to be out in the area, you want to try and catch us. Our band is called Rev On, which is a foreigner song that is one that we play. But, it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the creativity. The camaraderie is really special. I'm very blessed to play in a group of guys that are way more musically talented than I am, but I work hard to keep up, and that's been fun. So looking forward to that this year.
What's your favorite foreigner song?
Well, Hot Blooded is obviously a great song, great guitar, great hook. It's one of my favorites. I really enjoy Blue Morning, which is a great song. A lot of great songs. Mick Jones from Foreigner was a few years ago, nominated for the Songwriters Hall of Fame along with Lou Gramm, who was the original Foreigner singer. So, if you're listening out there and you're a member of Foreigner, I understand Tom Gimbel is a certified golf instructor. He's the rhythm guitar player for Foreigner. I noticed on their website.
Wow.
He lists himself as a certified golf instructor. So I'm hopeful Tom will get in touch with me and want to be a guest on my podcast coming up, since I'm playing in a Foreigner tribute band and we're both golf instructors. So I think that'll be fun. Yeah. But I've sent him an email. So if you're listening, Tom, hopefully you'll reach out. We'll connect.
Awesome.
Alan, I know you're getting back to your playing weight now.
Oh, yeah.
How about your playing hair?
Don't think the hair is going to be making a return.
Back?
No, I don't think that's necessary. No. Back in the day, I'm fortunate to still have hair at 58 years old, but I won't be growing it any longer than you're seeing it right now. I don't think there's any reason for that, but thanks for asking. Yeah, I know a lot of guys at my age go out and play, and they put on silly wigs and try to make themselves look more the 80s rock part. Not going to be me. I'll dress a little differently on stage when I'm playing the music, but I won't be wearing a wig or trying to grow my hair. So, no, it's just fun. It's just a creative atmosphere for me. But with golf, we're growing. Our club is growing. We have great junior participation. I'm fortunate enough to see one young player that I coach qualify to play on the PGA Latino America Tour this year. He finished 13th in the qualifying. A young man named Elliot Grayson from Shelby. He'll start his professional golf career in Mexico in March, and hopefully he'll work his way up to Korn Ferry and possibly even PGA Tour at some point. That's his goal. So it's fun to see that young man's career move in a good direction. So maybe I'll get to go coach him at a few events, and a few other players that I'm working with as well are moving their careers forward. But with our juniors at the club, it's been fun for me to get kids playing, and as like Robbie said, we're trying to get them playing and being artists. We're not trying to get them to match up to numbers on a launch monitor all the time. And as I get kids playing and inventing ways to play and inventing better ways to practice is probably my primary focus over the last year, seeing that golfers aren't getting the scores in the tournaments that they hope to. And a big reason is not the instruction they've been given, but it's in their lack of ability to practice effectively, to create competitive skills. And so I've found a great passion in getting kids better engaged in the process to improving through how they practice. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Weezy, what are you excited for in 2020?
We have a lot to be excited about at the Country Club of Spartanburg. The thing I'm most excited about is going through the process of learning to be more uncomfortable. Putting myself out there.
How you feeling right now?
Podcast. Uncomfortable. I can't quite say I love it at the moment.
That's okay.
Putting yourself in that position more often. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that this year.
Cool. Awesome. All right, next question. Unless anybody has anything to throw out there. Crickets. What would you be doing if you weren't teaching golf? I'll start because then this also goes with my absurd habit or behavior that I love is I think I would be doing something in the movie business. Now, not necessarily in front of the camera, but I'm just infatuated with screenwriting, photography, filmmaking. The whole process I think would be really super interesting for me, and I think I would enjoy doing something in that space. What about you, KB?
Yeah, I after high school, I coached 1 year high school football, and really liked that, and that's what I was going to go to college for was to be a coach. So I really think I could have done that, but in the football world.
Coaching just another
either,
sport or
Yeah, at a high school or even in college. But, that's – I don't know, something about coaching, and I think that's why I love to coach golf and coach people that really are dedicated because it's a lot of fun working with people, trying to get them better, and I think that's what drew me to being a high school coach as well. So,
Mers?
I think it would be something in the consulting field, logistically. I've been able to have good conversations with fellow PGA professionals and classmates of mine that are developing their own programs. And the ability to run a successful program that I've put myself in at Carmel, I've been able to share a lot of wisdom and give a lot of advice to fellow PGA professionals. And I think one thing that I was thinking about is my ability to go to a club, go to a facility, go somewhere and revamp it, give them new ideas. I feel like that would be something that I would be able to provide a service because I still feel so passionate in helping other people. And I think one thing that I love are the relationships that I've been able to build. And if I can do anything to help those relationships in their own paths, I think that's a cool way to contribute.
Love it. Fails is still like in deep thought over here. We want to skip over you?
Yeah.
All right, Sean, what would you be doing if you weren't teaching golf? Rap career, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd probably be in professional chemistry. I mean, I probably would have stuck to my guns.
With that, yeah.
I was lucky that I had a mentor who pointed out to me that you're not going to be a professional chemist because you have just way too many interests. So find one of those and dig a little deeper.
Do you ever question your decision when you think back?
Yeah, I would say monetarily, yeah. A lot of times that I do, because a lot of the guys that I teach are chemical engineers, and they're living a nice lifestyle.
Sure.
Yeah. But other than that, I would say from an enjoyment standpoint, no, because I didn't really enjoy the lab that much.
Yeah.
If the project was good, I got into it, but sometimes the projects that they put us on just weren't that exciting. And, I just
what you've done for your students and what you've done for golf is priceless. So I don't think you can't put a value on that.
No, it's exciting to kind of be excited to go to work every day.
There you go.
It's
hard to beat that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to go to a job that maybe you make more money, but you be miserable.
I mean, if they let me teach and I'm 85, I will probably still be teaching.
There you go.
When I'm 85.
Yep. AB, you probably already mentioned it.
Well,
it'd be a fun thing. Like if you didn't play music,
right?
Like what do you think you'd be doing?
Well, if I didn't play music, I'd probably still be attracted to the thought of managing artists.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe on the other side.
I feel like I could be a great manager. I could be a great record producer. I understand music. I understand putting people in a situation to get the best performance out of them, whether it's golf or music. And I feel like that's what a music producer does. He brings an artist in. The artist has a basic idea. It may be a lick that they feel like, is good. And then that producer says, well, that's good. Let's play it through this amp with this sound. And let's record it to this drum beat, and let's put this voice over top of it. And the singer comes in. You say, well, I want you to sing this note and then that note. Mm-hmm. And you create a melody that is catchy. And so I have that skill. I think I can put that type of performance together from artists that are very talented. And so that's something that fascinates me is how does that happen? How does a record come together? How does a song that we listen to and sing and hum along with, how does it hit that part of our soul that makes us want to sing it over and over and over again? Where does that musical hook and that musical connection, and how does that conversation take place when that music is being recorded? So for me, it's a fascination as well. Not just playing it, but also because it is a form of expression. That's what it is, really. You're speaking to someone when you play an instrument. You're trying to convey something without words, and it's emotion, and you're trying to make them feel something. It's tension and release. That's what music is. It's a combination of taking a listener on a journey, starting, middle of the story, and ending, and making them feel something.
Yeah, me and Sean were just talking about that earlier tonight before we went on air, of just reminiscing about some of the rap songs that we liked and artists, and it just all of a sudden just made me feel different. Mm-hmm. I can remember where I was when I heard this song for the first time. I mean, it's such an interesting
It strikes an
thing
emotional chord,
yeah.
Not only just a reminiscence of where you were when you heard it for the first time, but it spoke to you, and it said something that you wish you could have said in that way.
Sure.
That's what a song does well when it's a great song, is it says, wow, why didn't I think of saying it that way? and that's what makes it a hit.
So we were, it's a little off topic, but kind of continuing on that, like what are some of your favorite bands that you like nowadays, like newer bands? Because we were talking about old school rap and how the newer stuff maybe is not as easy for us to listen to. What do you think? Who's doing the right thing in your opinion in nowadays in the music business?
I'm gonna sound like an old fuddy-duddy because I really don't like a lot of new music.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. I get it.
To say, Eric Church, who ironically our club general manager is Eric's father, and so I don't know if any of you guys knew that, but Eric's music is wholesome. It's genuine. It's basically, country music today is Southern rock of my high school years. It's turned into a real wholesome, form of music and expression. So to me, that's what I guess I was brought up listening to and I'm most drawn to. Mm-hmm. I've never been a rap fan. I'm not against rap. I don't get some of the rap culture, and I know some of it's just because I didn't grow up in Detroit or I didn't grow up in New York, and some of these areas were these people that grew up, and I have some good friends that were in the record business that managed rap artists, and they talked about their lifestyles, and some of these guys grew up on the streets and they lived that life. I didn't live that life, so I can't come from that same perspective as easily, but in general I like groups like Bad Company, Foreigner, Journey, Bryan Adams. These are the bands, Kiss, these are the bands, Loverboy, these are the bands I grew up listening to. And so it's good music, it's positive, it's fun, it gives you energy. A good song to me, Van Halen, you get in the car, you got a great car, and you're on a nice stretch of highway, and that song just makes you want to drive a little too fast, it makes your heart go.
I hear you.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's what I like. So,
Robbie, have you got an answer for us yet? Back to you.
I don't, but it's honestly kind of depressing.
Here it is, man.
It's honestly kind of depressing thinking about.
Go from your gut.
But, I mean, I'm just trying to think of the things that I like. I like theory. I like problem solving. I like science. I don't know. It's just.
So I think that
golf's a pretty good fit.
You can
it's
still.
A pretty good fit.
Well, you can
don't tell me I can't do what I like doing.
Right.
You can
think about doing something I don't like doing.
I think James Ridyard said that he would be teaching a class on problem solving 101. That's not a bad. It's okay to say you would be a coach, maybe just in another capacity. You're like a.
What about a college professor?
An extra educator, yeah.
I would be a college professor at Clemson University.
There you go. That was another. That was another. It kind of reminds me of a question I used to ask from one of my older podcasts. Is that if you were going to teach a class other than golf, what would it be? What would you be qualified to teach?
So, I think you know this about me, but I'm if I'm just going to YouTube something, I'd really like philosophy, like cognitive, like what is consciousness, like what is like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I think I would teach a philosophy class of going over a lot of the theory of those different theories.
Yeah, I like it.
So I think that would be probably the best thing I could come up with.
A mixture, like in golf instruction nowadays, is it's part science, it's part artistry, it's part philosophy.
Yeah,
it's like how do you?
I just love the blend. I love the blend of all three of those.
Sure.
Different.
And you have to be.
facets.
I think the great ones do that. Yeah. Wow. Do we want to go into your latest certification? We want to dig into that a little bit.
Quan.
The Quan. You just got back from golf. We actually switched to a golf topic here.
Yeah.
One of the questions I was gonna ask the group is what's one thing that you learned in the last year that has helped your teaching? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we've done some certifications. I mean, I could go from Scott Cowks to Tyler Farrell to what you've shared with Quan. I didn't go to the certification, but you did a great job of sort of sharing the highlights of it, and we were already, I've already implemented a few things into my teaching just last week of the things you've shared. Any you can start there.
I would make a comment on something that Robbie shared with me that I thought was really very, very solid in the podcast you did with me that you learned at Quan. In the golf swing, what are the three things we can influence within the golf swing? I think if I remember correctly, it was basically these three things. You can affect the geometry of the golf swing, affect the force applied in the golf swing, or the speed,
energy,
and then you could affect the
time.
The time, yeah. So there's a timing aspect to everything that occurs, and so those relationships are very commonly where we are digging for improvements.
Right.
And that's it. If you look in those three areas, you're going to find one or more than one that a golfer needs to focus on.
I think one thing that's interesting is certainly after Quan, when I look at golf swings now, I used to basically go from almost a purely geometry standpoint. Mm-hmm. So, okay, how does the club need to move differently? How does the face need to move differently? But I mean, lately when I'm looking at golf swings, okay, if we change the time, what else would change? Mm-hmm. A lot.
There's a lot of relationships that are time
There's a
related.
lot of there's an interplay between all three of those aspects. I think that if you're too caught in one,
it's a symphony.
Yeah.
And you, like you say, a player might be going into lead wrist extension, and that's all fine and good, but you just need to do it later.
Mm-hmm.
Flip later.
How
later.
Is it exactly?
Fastball.
It's like that's not bad if you did it in this area later after impact versus when you do it.
Right.
And so you're not changing the movement patterns mechanically.
And
you're changing
it's the motion, time. Not the position.
It's the when you did it, right?
Right.
I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Shawnee?
Well, I was just going to ask Robbie: is one more influential than the other? Has anything from being quantified?
He just learned it like 5 days ago.
Ask me next year.
I'll ask you tomorrow.
Well, I think still the best answer there would be what it depends on the player
Sure.
you're dealing with today.
But I think if you're changing geometry, then you're changing the forces are required to change the geometry, which is changing the energy, which is giving you a different. So it's
kinetics or is it kinematics?
I think
right. It's like we talked about that.
About that.
Yeah, the stuff that like Dr. Bull's putting out. I mean, there's another side to every probably philosophy, but it all comes back to the truths about what's actually happened, what can be measured.
Right.
But I think we all have to question everything that we learn.
Question how it's measured. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like down to, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, Sean, you remember the presentation that Paul Wood did at TrackMan. Or at the top 100 something about TrackMan, like he was like 1,000 wedges or something, and they were like, "There's no correlation of like," and he couldn't figure out why this was different, and like the measuring device, and that's as good as it gets, right? I mean, aside from 3D stuff, I mean, it's just you got to be a little bit subjective, right? I mean, it's just the legitimacy of everything has to be questioned, and I think that's. Our curiosity as coaches has to be on high alert all the time. You can't just go and learn something and go, okay, that's gospel, right? You got to test it, study, practice, teach. You guys ever heard that, right? So it's like that's the genesis of all of that. So, great book that I'm reading right now called Awareness that talks about that. It's like your belief system. Like you need to be questioning your belief system all the time. Because it's easy to kind of get into that mode of like doing the same thing over and over and over, but I don't know. That's a deep discussion that can go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, I think we're teaching a game that is so variable and so mixed with variation. The environment that we play it in, the people that we're dealing with, and the variables that are going in those two directions they're infinite. And so when a player comes to us and says they'd like to be more consistent, we have to do a lot better job of questioning what that player's meaning of the word consistency really is before we can help them. And certainly that's a pretty common request, isn't it, on the lesson tee? I'd like to be more consistent. And my contention generally is that I don't think consistency is a reality in the game of golf. When if you see a professional golfer's scores are not that consistent. Their ball flight might be reasonably consistent, but it's not the same every time. There's patterns, and we have to be aware that consistency is, a concept and a concept in their mind that might not be achievable. And so, can you sign your name 12 times in a row and with the ballpoint pen and make it look exactly the same every time? I don't think that's a human skill. So we're questioning whether a human can be that precise to produce any level of consistency in a game that demands variation.
Adaptability.
Adaptability is more important than consistency.
Well, it's not even part of our evolutionary biology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't evolve to be consistent.
Right.
Yeah, and I think for us, I mean, as coaches, we have to figure out what works for our students the best to make them the most efficient. So, to me, we can understand movement patterns, but movement patterns for everybody is not the same. So you have to take the individuals and figure out what's best and most efficient for them so they can get better the quickest and in a manner that's going to help them, score better. So, and I think that's the part of a coach that you have to understand. So you have to understand lots of things and how it's going to work for that particular person because everybody's different. And, I think that's the big picture stuff. So
how do you learn that?
For me, experience. I mean, it's, we go to all the educational stuff and you read everything and you watch as much as you can and you learn as much as you can. And then you try to apply it. And the application takes, to me, a lot of time. So the certification for experience isn't really out there other than you just put the time in. So, sitting out and teaching and trying to figure out what's going to work for certain people, to me that just takes a long time to do that. And, and you got to be smart about what you're doing. Obviously, if you're not helping people, that's not the way to go. But if if your players are getting better, and the bottom line is if we're helping people achieve their goals and the players are getting better, I mean, that's kind of the direction we want to go. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I had an 8-year-old boy the other day, and this young man was hitting on the simulator in an indoor environment, and every shot he hit was probably 30 yards right of his target for a little 30-yard pitch shot. And it just it dawned on me that he had no awareness of why that was happening. So I went into a conversation with him, and I said, his name is Preston. I say, Preston, do you know how to give someone 5? Show me how you do that with your right hand. So I put my hand like this, and he slapped me 5. I said, well, that's great. I said, do you know how to ask for 5? He stuck his hand like that. I said, do you know how to shake hands? He stuck his hand like that. I said, so you just did 3 different things, this, and this. I said, that's great. Let's get over to your golf swing. I want to show you how that applies to your golf swing. And so I said, let's make a couple of golf shots. I said, when you swing past the ball, I want you to shake hands over here. And I stood in front of him, and I said, I'm the target. Shake hands with me when you swing past the ball over here. And he did that. I said, now I want you to give me 5. Turned his hand more. I said, next couple of shots, I want you to try and do that. Give me 5 when you hit the ball. And I backed away and hit 4 very straight shots in a row. And I said, you see, that's kind of the way it works. I said, he goes, was I asking for 5? Is that what I was doing? He's 8 years old. I said, yep, awesome. You were asking for 5 because you needed $5 to buy more balls because you'd lost all yours in the woods over there to the right. And it was a smile that came over his face. I said, so what are you going to do next time? He said, I'm going to shake hands with a target. I said, okay, good. I said, some days you feel like you're shaking hands and the ball's still going to the right. So on those days, you're going to be given 5. It's a relativity. We're feeling something, try and match up impact. He needed to understand where the club face was, and so that's what I gave him.
It's something simple that he's always going to remember. I mean, it's a
Let's
great.
Hope.
It's a great lesson. It's great.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you all, and it's something that just as someone who's watched a lot of golf instruction, I notice that it's a commonality between across people who are successful teaching this game is they tend to use their words to paint pictures to create a concept. So what are some just really practical examples of the ways that you might do that in a lesson? What are, Alan, when I came and watched you teach that day, that was like mind-blowing for me how, regardless of the problem, you were able to use your words efficiently to create a concept and a picture for that student to help them understand. So this is for anyone. I mean, what are some of your favorite
examples?
Yeah.
I think it's it comes from the early school teaching. For me, a lot of what I did early on in my career, people say, you want to be a good teacher, read Harvey Penick.
What's up, everyone? Guru back here again with a couple of things before you jump off. First, big thank you to the boys for coming on the show, sharing their incredible knowledge about teaching in life. that I know will help all of you become better coaches. So I hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you give all these guys a follow on Twitter and Instagram and give them a social wave and say thank you. Thanks again to our sponsors, nvdhemp.com, and make sure you use the promo code GURU20 for a 20% discount. Also, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I didn't drop my handles. I am at Golf Guru TV on both Twitter and Instagram. And make sure you go to the App Store and download the Golf Guru app. And basically giving it away at this point. Super low cost with a lot of value. Also, check out my website at golfgurutv.net, where you can find videos, articles, and more information on my teaching and coaching. And if you have a question or comment, you can email me at the show, golfgurushow@gmail.com, or hit me up on the DM. Thank you so much for the DMs, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. And thank you for sharing. This show and all episodes of the Golf Guru Show are produced by myself, Jason Sutton. Music is by Kevin MacLeod and Zach Mullett. And as I always leave you with the infamous Jim Rohn quote, study, practice, teach, and then pass it on. I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening.